Good evening and welcome to tonight's Yukon City Council, Yukon Municipal Authority work session. It is August 16th, 2022. It is 6:30. We're here in the council chambers, which is 12 South 5th Street in the great city of Yukon, Oklahoma. Tonight we have two items we'll be discussing during our work session. The first one is a discussion of emergency proclamation ordinance as requested by Council Member Rodney Zimmerman. Are you starting it or is Councilman Zimmerman?
Councilman Zimmerman.
Okay. Yeah, there's actually two parts to this that I was asked to look at. And we're talking about ordinance section 7498, subsection A, and it's part 5 there says and that's stuff that the mayor under an emergency proclamation can prohibit. And it's the possession of firearms or other deadly weapons by a person other than a law enforcement officer in a place other than that person's place of residence or business. And I did some checking into that, and that actually goes against Oklahoma State Statute 1321.4 subsection B.
That Jay recently got passed.
Yes.
It's not something that has
Well-
been going on for a length of time, but a new recent one. But doesn't this one have to do specifically with during a time of riot in the streets?
Well, even under that, it states that the governor
Right.
nor any municipal authority can restrict the
Right.
possession of firearms, ammunition, etc.
Right.
So, so the proposal there is just to strike that out. Because what we know, 10 years from now, whoever's mayor may not know that. And that would avoid them from issuing that as part of the prohibited items.
This is one that we have to address because it is state law. It's not one that I'm fond of because during a riot, hopefully you're going to keep your guns at home or in your business protecting it, not out in the streets pointing them at people. But due to our esteemed colleagues at the Capitol, they saw it necessary to allow people to have guns in the riot, pointing them at people. Do you have anything, John, that you'd want to add? I mean, we can't change state law.
Right.
But just your thoughts.
Yeah, it is common sense, and you would hope that people would adhere to that under the circumstances, depending on what that could be. We've seen it in our country already, and it's prompted some of these states, and ours included, to change the statute language. So, yes, our municipal ordinance needs to be updated so it falls in line with state statute. And we can only hope that everybody does their diligence and exercises common sense under those certain conditions that would not be favorable to be armed.
Right.
Right.
Any other discussion? Councilman Wooden?
Well, if it's state statute, we kind of
No, we have to.
hands are tied on it. Yep.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Yonda?
I guess we don't have a choice. I don't like it, but
I don't either.
I guess we have to follow suit.
You said you were asked. Who asked you to?
One of the citizens. I figure if they want, they can come up and.
Okay. Okay. Any other
That's kind of a
discussion?
two-part
Okay.
change.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, the second part was, I was asked, because there's a precedence where some cities have the entire council make these proclamations. That's
What-
kind of
okay.
hard to do.
That's one part of what we're
Emergency
talking-
proclamations.
Okay, because this was about guns.
Yes.
So second part is about.
Yes,
why don't you
we've
do that?
moved on to adding an extra subsection potentially. Talking about after a mayor makes a proclamation, a time limit to where the entire council would come together and look at it. Right now, the proposal's about 48 hours, and there's precedents where there are municipalities in the state of Oklahoma that do that. Mustang's 24 hours, according to their ordinances. There's a small handful of municipalities I found that they say the council has to make it. I don't think that something might need to happen overnight. You can't do that. So that was the other proposal.
Again, was this one asked by a citizen or is it coming from you?
It was asked to take a look at it. And,
By a citizen
and,
or
yeah.
your,
Yes.
okay. Okay, discussion. Councilman Wooten.
So you said Mustang there's just 24 hours. Did you see, was there any other cities that you saw that was similar?
I want to say it's Altus is 48, and there were a couple others off the top of my head. I don't have that list with me. There were a few throughout the state.
Okay.
Councilwoman Yonda.
I don't see a problem with the way it currently is, so.
And I think the question was presented to me was, since the citizens elect the council to act as a council as a whole, making decisions, that at some point they wondered why the council as a whole wouldn't look at something like that. I think what you'd see in a situation like that is 4 things would happen. Like right now, most emergency proclamations probably aren't going to last very long, and the mayor's probably going to issue another proclamation ending that one, potentially before the 48 hours is up. You could also have one where the council comes in and there's a need for that to be extended. Instead of the mayor shouldering the responsibility on that, the council now takes that responsibility and shoulders the extension of that. Because as we know, not everybody likes everything that's done. So there's always going to be criticism, but the council will now take that. There could also be a third scenario where we come in and we're like, okay, that was necessary, but now after 48 hours that has passed and everything's under control and that's done, and we're going to let it in. There could also be the 4th scenario where we come in and we end it, or we as in whoever the council may be down the road.
Sometimes I think you have to look at the timing, and I think we elect a mayor based on the confidence that we place in that person, and I think they have the ability to make those decisions.
I can tell you, as a mayor who's made those decisions, prior to being mayor, I was part of when Mayor McCarron made a decision that I did not support, but he was the mayor. And he made a comment to me that said, if you become mayor and you have to go to bed at night knowing you did everything in your power to protect the citizens, then you'll understand. So next year, I was the mayor. It is a huge responsibility to have to put your head down at night and know that you have done everything you can or that people died on your watch. And the last one that we went through where there was some controversy, it was not a decision that I made alone, but had a council of people that were on a board, our COVID board. I had spoken to every one of the councilmen, and so it was not a decision that I said I personally am going to make. But when it came down to it, it was my name on it, and I had to answer to it. And I had to sleep with the fact that, did I do everything in my power that I felt I could do for the citizens of this town? Did I make everybody happy? No, it didn't matter. If I went this way, it wouldn't make this group happy, and if I went this way, it wouldn't make this group happy. It's not about making people happy. When you're the mayor or a council person, our personal agendas don't get to be taken into heart. What's taken into heart is what's best for our community as a whole. So when you say the mayor makes that decision, it was never done by me alone. It was done by getting input from a very educated group of people that I met with on a weekly basis concerning this. It was done with taking in the consideration of the other 4 council members, and then with all of that, making a proclamation that I could live with. And it was the least restrictive that I could do to keep our community open and to keep our community safe. I do, when Mike made his proclamation, like I said, I did not agree, but I honored it, and I never went against it, never spoke against it, because that was his decision to make. That didn't always happen when I made my decision. Having 48 hours, that to me is a length of time that would be okay, because to get all of us together and to make a decision that you haven't been for weeks living and being educated weekly and updated, and to get all four of us in one place in an emergency. Let's say, I mean, we've never had a riot in this town, have we? Okay. But let's say we did. Okay, well, now we got guns. Everybody in the street shooting at each other. There will be a time when maybe a proclamation has to be made that it goes solely upon meeting with the police chief and one person. And we can't wait for all four to get together and for all four to make that decision. 24 hours, I don't know if that's enough turnaround time.
I would agree. I think that's really
48
fast.
hours, I think that's more doable. But let's say it's a massive fire, massive flood. Who knows if we're going to be able to get everybody together in that 48 hours? So I think it's something we really have to think about. To me, it's not about, oh, the mayor has all this power. That's a joke. I don't have a lot of power. But even if I did, anything that I have made in the past, and I would hope any future mayor would make, would not be a personal agenda item or something that I just made, but that I took input from educated people that surround me. I don't want that burden and it just being my decision. I want to have all the facts and knowledge in there, and sometimes that's not easy to get everybody together. Those are my thoughts.
True. And for the record, I want to state, I don't think that when I was asked to look at that, I have no knowledge that was directed at anything that you
okay.
did or any decisions you made. So,
There were some comments. So, yeah, but I just think that is something that we have to look at. I don't think we ever shut this city down like Mike did or made mask mandates that were frivolous. They were all with an epidemic, something we had never experienced in our life before. Other proclamations that have been made in the past are often like proclamations to declare it somebody's day. But a state of emergency, I don't remember us having to make a proclamation of that magnitude. In my awareness, anybody else remember something? I hope and pray that I never have to make that decision again. Because I'm going to tell you, it cost a lot of sleepless nights, health problems, because I was making decisions that impacted people's lives. So yeah, I did ask the council what they thought.
right.
And at that time, the majority felt the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I think that's where they can carry that burden also in a situation like this. So it's got things that can be positive that would come out of that.
But the bottom line is, that's the mayor's signature that's on there, and that's who takes the heat for it. And so maybe it would need to be changed to a proclamation by council.
Well, except for I still think you need to have that leeway for
Right.
a quick decision and quick action to be put into place.
Right.
And then it can be visited down the road.
Anybody else? Comments? Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
I think in the case of us having a disaster, I don't think 48 hours is enough time. Because we don't know how many council members would be affected, who could show up for a meeting and who couldn't. So I think in the sense of an emergency in a disaster situation, I don't want to do a what if,
Right.
but we have to think about that.
Yeah. And those are things, I kind of ran through scenarios. And I mean, you can what if, you could what if on the odds of having 3 of us here tonight, just based off anything that could happen.
Yeah, but tonight, the odds of something happening, if we have a massive tornado that destroys our town, your odds are a lot less that you'll get them all there.
Yeah. But that's just you can what if everything. So,
So what would be because we're not voting on this proclamation, on this change of ordinance, that's something that will have to go in our agenda meeting. So what would be your recommendation for for that
Um,
ordinance change?
What I would like, and we've sent it out in an email, the wording, Mr. Reinhardt did, for the rest of the council to look at that and come up with, is there anything you like about that suggestion? Is there anything you'd like to change or tweak in that that you feel that would make it better? And then we come to the table that way and see if there's anything there, or if there's not. There may not be.
Mr. Reinhardt, do you have anything to add to that legality-wise?
Not specifically, we did, the language that I did, I'm sorry, not specifically, the language that I did draft said that within 48 hours of the issuance of a proclamation declaring a state of emergency, the mayor, by the mayor, a special city council meeting shall be convened to ratify, amend, or abolish the action of the mayor. And then in the proposed language, we said if the city council is not convened within 48 hours, the proclamation of the mayor declaring the state of emergency would be null and void, which could be problematic if you, in the case of a disaster, of a tornado or a massive flood or something, but that's up for you all to determine.
Can you think of any, I'm asking those of you that have been around a lot longer than I have, as a regular citizen, you really don't pay much attention to some of these. Can you think of any time we've had a proclamation of the magnitude of the ones that were made in the last few years? Sean, no. John, no. So, in an ordinary world, this isn't an issue. So are you talking about any other kind of proclamation, just an emergency proclamation?
Yeah, that's all we're in is an emergency proclamation. Because fortunately, we're lucky enough to live here in Yukon where things are pretty calm and relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
But I always like to look out at the future, and who knows, 10, 20 years from now, what those things look like. Hopefully, they look the same.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, we'll move on to item number 2. Discussion of an ordinance to allow fireworks within the city limits as requested by Vice Mayor Jeff Wooten.
So I wanted to start the discussion. I asked Mitch one night, how much money can we make if we sold fireworks in Yukon? And I haven't heard. Did you get a ballpark on anything of a guesstimation or anything? Did you?
If they're sold by 5013Cs, which is most ball teams, other nonprofit organizations, do we collect tax?
And that's one thing we were going to look at to see if it was something that was taxable or.
Well, I was unable to do any research because I had some family issues I had to deal with, so I was not able to determine that. I did talk to some people to see how to go about that, and it's kind of one of those deals. It's kind of hard to determine the actual return on that sales tax, so nobody could really give me a definitive answer how to even determine how to go about that. We do and are able to look at our sales tax, or we're not, but we have somebody that can. And they, as of yet, have not been able to provide me any numbers.
Okay.
Because most of that people who sell fireworks are nonprofits.
Most of everybody that we know of, either it's a school function or FFA or cheerleaders or, you know, some group that's trying to get money for a baseball team, soccer team. So, I mean, that's what you normally see. Now, there is some for-profits.
Right. So if it is a nonprofit,
I'm not for sure how that,
would they
I think
charge
they still
tax?
have to require to pay sales tax if they're charging the public for those, because it would be taxable, I would think,
I mean, I'd have to
the
look into
resale.
that. I have to look into that specifically. I know in Mustang, I did pull their ordinance, and theirs is limited to nonprofit, civic, charitable, fraternal, educational, or religious organizations, and they only do it for 9 days, from the 27th of June through July 4th.
Sell or let them use them?
They have another provision regarding discharge,
And
which
they're-
is also June 27th through July 4th.
Does Mustang's got a for-profit store as well, don't they?
Not in their city limits. I think
is it not in
Fireworks
city
City
limits?
is outside the city limits. I think it's a little in unincorporated area that actually is at the edge of their city limits and surrounded by Oklahoma City, if I remember right.
Okay, I didn't know how far that
Yeah.
stretched. I don't know. I just this was something that kind of kick around. Seeing, I know there's a lot of people that go and they buy fireworks and go off other places and shoot them off. Then we bring up the conversation of would we want it in Yukon? I mean,
I do think the fire chief has some
I'm sure he's
concern.
got
I
a.
was gonna say, let's
Sure,
talk
he's got an
to
opinion
the
on it.
fire and the police chief, yeah.
Yes.
Let's hear from Sean.
Well, first of all, I'll start by, I'm no fireworks expert, but, you know, speaking for the fire department, we do have some concerns. I mean, currently with Freedom Fest, we kind of like that because it's centralized in the city. We can pre-plan that event, which we do. I call in extra help for that event, you know. We can strategically place our units around that. And, you know, of course, we have a pop zone, so we don't have to worry about anybody being in there and getting hurt by the fireworks. But we do have to look at where we could have some spot fires and such, and, you know, this year's proof. Both nights we had issues. So that's big. And I just want to throw some stuff out to you that I saw. Each year in the U.S., emergency rooms treat more than 10,000 firework injuries. Most of those are hands, fingers, arms. And that's just what concerns me a little bit, because these fireworks now, they're so unpredictable. They're getting bigger and bigger every year that you can buy right out of these stands. So that's just a concern for us. I think, you know, trying to cover the city, because when people can buy them and just pop them where the city, it's just going to be hard for us to make those calls. Because, you know, even with Freedom Fest, we call people in because we still have to, you know, take care of our citizens on the normal calls other than that festival going on. And it's just, you know, our citizen safety is our main concern. So that's for me. And then, you know, last year, I'll give you an example. I know it was just outside our city limits, we ran a house fire with Oklahoma City, got automatic aid. And it wasn't the fireworks going off themselves. They popped them. They thought everything was good. They go put it in their poly cart. Poly cart goes next to the house. 2 hours later, the house was on fire. And what makes that even worse is people are home sleeping now, so now we gotta worry about people in their houses. And those are just some examples, you know. So I just think that's just some of my concerns. And then lastly, you know, with our ISO rating, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's our insurance services office. It helps determine our insurance premiums on your whatever you're rated. So if you have that, it's under the community risk reduction section of it. You get a 0.5 point deduction right away if you have fireworks allowed. So it's just another thing to look at.
Good point. Okay. John, did you have something to add?
Naturally, ours isn't along the lines of personal injury, which does go up. Ours is property damage. You tend to have things that get exploded that weren't intended to be exploded through a lot of experimentation. So it does increase our call volume, and with the personal injury comes property damage and vandalism, and that's the biggest part we would deal with on it.
How many calls would you guess that you get already with fireworks going off in the city?
Now,
Yeah.
a lot, even though we have that structured, organized event as the city.
And there is an ordinance that you
It-
cannot shoot fireworks. in
Almost to
Yukon.
the point that we probably on the night of the 3rd and the 4th take 25 or 30 actual people make that call because they're either new to the community and they don't realize that it's illegal to possess and discharge. The question is how many things happen that we don't get called on.
Sure.
And those, you know, we can drive down a street during any one of those 2 nights of our festivities going on and people are discharging fireworks inside the city limits. The officers try to do a great job, stop, educate those people, maybe they're new to town, but again, you have that influx and you have a mobility of people and your citizens that are desensitized to it. They're not even making those calls.
My concern too is for our veterans. I know I have one down the street from me, and this is a trigger for some of our veterans. They like the fact that we don't have it in our city, that it is isolated incidents to where they don't have to listen to it all night. I did speak with someone, knowing this was coming up, from Mustang, from inside their government and said they regret that they have it there because it is like a war zone that night, and that they don't go out there because it is very, very dangerous. Now, I grew up as a kid where we shot pop bottle rockets at each other and, Roman candles, and we did have Bethany Park where it was a war zone. And I am amazed I survived it because it was pretty crazy. But our veterans, if it's just about being able to have a nonprofit raise money, like a ball team or some other organization, you can go right outside our city limits out here in the county in between us and El Reno and get a spot where you can do that and have it because it's a great fundraiser. But you could do it out in the county rather than inside our city. I also asked them about I said, we do 2 nights of huge fireworks. Would the city continue that? Well, you couldn't on 3rd and 4th because the city park will be a zoo. They do theirs the week before is when they have their big event. So we wouldn't have, and we're one of the cities that, everybody comes to. It brings in a huge influx of people to our town and revenue to our town as people stop and buy food here, shop here, get to know our city better. But I love our 3rd and 4th, and I would hate to see that end. Tammy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, of course, I'm concerned about the safety. I don't want to see people walking through the crowd at Freedom Fest and popping fireworks. I think that, with kids the way they love fireworks and everything, I think it would just present a problem. I think it's a huge safety hazard. Honestly, I don't think we would bring in that much sales tax because it is a cash business. And that's all I'll say on that. It's a cash business, and I don't see that it would bring in that much sales tax.
I don't see that we could have the 3rd and 4th. If you have people can shoot fireworks in the city of Yukon on the 3rd and 4th, how can you monitor that in a crowd of 10 to 15,000?
That's right. And would we even have Freedom Fest
Right.
anymore?
I wouldn't see that because even if you said, okay, well, you can't shoot them on July 4th, we've already got them in our city. We're letting people shoot them every other day. I find I'd be hard pressed. Any other comments? Councilwoman Yonda, do you have anything?
I just think it puts our city at a tremendous risk, and I am not in favor of it at all. I'd hate to see it take away from our Freedom Fest, and I honestly don't want to listen to them all night.
Right. This is a study session, so can Ward speak? Good, okay, speak up.
I'm Ward Larson. I've lived in Yukon for 45 years, and I came down to this area because of a problem with arson back in the 70s. And I have a lot of experience with fires, and they're never very pretty. And I think that as far as the Freedom Fest nights, the 2 nights, that the fire department is already loaded down with some responsibility, particularly in the park, making sure that everything's going to be safe over there. But if we've got everybody all across this community starting off fireworks, I think I can see situations, the fire here and a fire here that spreads where it's going to be unmanageable. And it potentially could be. I'm not saying that it will be. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Some of the other comments I was going to make have already been covered. One is the injury aspect. I grew up in a small town in western Nebraska, and I've got 2 younger friends out there that are missing several fingers each due to a nice M80. And if this thing is put together in an ordinance, is it going to identify the type of fireworks that individuals are allowed to ignite? How big is the rocket? Are you going to use M80s? Or are those going to be illegal, or cherry bombs? And how do if somebody complains, sends in a complaint, the evidence is gonna be gone by the time whoever might be out trying to enforce that ordinance. There isn't gonna be no evidence left probably by the time they get there, so it's not reasonable that it would specify that because of lack of enforceability and lack of evidence on the backside. And I don't think that the sales tax revenue for the city of Yukon is going to be a big deal because like one of you mentioned, you can already buy fireworks outside of the city limits, and I don't think that selling them within the city limits is gonna be a big attraction for people who want to light these off. But the potential for property damage, for fires, is greatly increased if we have the next time we have a summer like this one on the 4th of July where we're drier than the inside of a popcorn popper. It increases the hazard. If everybody's out there throwing fireworks around in the 9-day period, I think it's a little excessive. There are gonna be a whole bunch of neighbors who are gonna be upset with each other at the end of those 9 days. And it's not gonna be a big asset for community harmony in the long run. So basically, a lot of things I had down here I was gonna mention, be redundant because the chief of police and chief of fire have already mentioned those things. So that's not just my opinion on what this ordinance might do for the city of Yukon. I've talked to a whole bunch of my neighbors and people that I know that are also opposed to it, and they come from all walks of life.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Larson. I
thank you for your
appreciate
time.
that. Jeff, do you have any closing comments?
No, I just thought we'd have the discussion on it, and especially on the sales tax side of things. I know, like you said, you can go outside of the city, but what if those came in? I know you said it's a cash business, but it'd be maybe something to look into just to see. We can have our discussion points on it, and nothing wrong with having a discussion.
Okay. All right, our time is up for study session. In fact, we've gone over. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess just to get our council members a break, and so we'll reconvene in 5 minutes.